Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. Well, we've had quite a few different bits of news come out for Classic WoW, the beta, and looking forwards to TBC over the past week, and it was news from really all over the place that never really fit together, so I'm just going to cram everything into one video as a bit of a update of how things are going at the moment. So on the beta, players have found out that mage AoE farming isn't quite dead yet. Now, I think when we heard about the AoE caps coming in, that should have really been it for mages being able to do this kind of thing. But like I mentioned in the mage video, the actual side effect that allows mages to do this, permafrost and improved with blizzard, were not changed whatsoever, so where there's a will, there's a way. And of course the AoE cap only really matters if you're actually hitting that number. If you're hitting few enough mobs where it's not overly affecting you, then they're not really changed whatsoever. And there's been quite a few clips, as we can see here, of people going around and pulling all the lobsters at the start of slave pens and hopping up and down on this ledge, and they path back around the ledge and then back to you again, and you just repeat and repeat. And as you can see here, people are saying over 300k XP an hour, which apparently isn't that far off what you can do in dungeons as a group anyway, but you can do this with the benefit of being solo. This is just one example that people have found within a pretty short time after having access to the beta. This isn't entirely a surprise. Even looking back some videos from back in the day, you can see people solo farming in slave pens on these particular mobs. And that's before we're even seeing what people are able to pull off in the Black Morass dungeon, which is just packed with non-elite creatures. I imagine you could very easily round up an AoE down. Should be even good gold as well. And I know people will mention that Paladin boosting will replace it, and maybe they should be AoE capped as well, but you can't AoE cap Consecration without really hurting Prot Pally's ability to tank, because Consecration is their big threat generator for AoE. At least what mages won't be doing anymore will be those pulls you see in Maridon at the moment where they're pulling 300 to 400 mobs. In that kind of scenario, the AoE cap would hit them sufficiently hard, where it just reduced their damage too much. As for Paladins though, well, we'll see what people are able to pull off once they have a bit more time to look into it. And of course this means boosting will still be around as well, which I was kind of hoping we were going to see less of after Classic. I think it's always good to have some people out in the open world, and boosting really does take away from that. Again, the issue is not just necessarily the mobs, but things like Frostbite and improved blizzard. So in order to fully kill it, you probably have to change something huge, which would have really big effects on the game as a whole. So I reckon we're in for another expansion of boosting. Moving on though, add-ons have also been updated on the beta, and some of them are now working, namely Questy, which I'm super happy about. You can find the link on their Discord if you do have access at the moment. Blizzard have finally announced their answer to the issue of world buffs, both for the Classic era servers as well as TBC. Interestingly, they also mentioned in a blue post that it will come out before Burning Crusade Classic is released. And I want to say it's better late than never, but I even think we've gone past that kind of point at the moment now. But it is another change, which I would say is overall positive for the Classic era servers. So here is what they have come up with. It is called the Chronoboon Displacer. This is sold by Chromie over in the Western Plaguelands. You can buy it and you can just stack them up. For that, you can go around the world, pick up your buffs as usual, and then you use the item. After you've used the item, it'll store the duration of each of the world buff auras that you currently have active at the moment. And it just says a few of them in the tooltip, but it has been tested and it works on things like Darkmoon Fair and Songflower. This will then hold your world buffs indefinitely up to a point in time where you use the Chronoboon Displacer again, and then it will release the world buffs and reapply them to you. So essentially, you still have to go out and about in the world to pick up your buffs, but once you've done it, you can snapshot them all and put them in your bag and then just go about the game and do whatever you like as normal, up to a time where you want to use them. And you can't snapshot each individual buff. Once you've used the Displacer, it becomes a unique item and it has an hour cooldown after use. So that's pretty nice. Would have been good if we had that a bit earlier, but I guess, you know, classic, authenticity, blah blah, the usual argument really. Maybe we'll see it on fresh servers one day. How about that, eh? Alongside this announcement, a player asked, can you make an option where we can do raids without world buffs? To which a blue post replied, that's the direction we intend to go in Burning Crusade Classic. We intend to have world buffs removed at the start of the raid encounter. I think that was the big solution people were looking for Classic, but if that's what we would get in TBC, then I think that's very positive as well. Now, we already know that world buffs don't work above level 63 anyway, so is this really necessary? Well, yeah, it could be actually. You see, in addition to actual world buffs in TBC, there are a number of very powerful effects that you can use, from spell steals or mind controls or enslaved demon type effects to buff your allies. I managed to find a post all the way back from January 9th, 2007, so I don't know if this will be absolutely correct, but I know some of them are, which mentioned things like a plus 295 spell damage buff from Menders in Botanica. These mobs are right at the start of the dungeon. You just mind control them, then you can buff allies. It's super quick to do, so If this goes in live and you're able to do that, it's a 30-minute buff. And to put it in perspective of how much spell damage that is, the flasks in TBC give 80 bonus spell damage effects, so this is absolutely enormous. Similar to that, we have the Whip Frenzy buff, which is available from the succubuses in the little cave just south of Honorhold. This only lasts 5 minutes and it has a 1-minute cooldown after cast, but it is 30% attack speed, so that's pretty huge. Similarly, they mention a fire shield here as well. I don't know if it will still scale with spell damage, but this one can only be spell stolen at least by mages and it only lasts 2 minutes, so hopefully that one won't be overly abusable. So though even world buffs are gone, there are other outliers here which could quite easily replace them and see part of play in metagaming, or if you want to push your performance, or especially for speedruns. Again, if Blizzard doesn't make any changes, Warcraft logs could come to the rescue, similar to what they did with restricting certain things in Classic, like the Traces of Silithus buff from Silithus after Phase 6 was open and the new world PvP objectives became available. Alternatively, I mean, there's a reason that Spellsteal buffs only have a maximum duration of 2 minutes, isn't there? Maybe that should apply to Mind Control and Enslaved Demon as well. In any event, I believe this is the correct way to go, and I hope they do follow through on this and keep in mind additional effects other than just world buffs. Finally, they released another survey. I don't have a link for it, and no, I didn't get one myself. The usual, really. But, you know, check your email. You never know. And the key point it asked about is how much would you be willing to pay to copy your character to a Classic era server? So this is the service they announced at BlizzCon, where you'll be able to keep one of your characters on the Classic era server, but also simultaneously progress with them over the Dark Portal and on into TBC. And what they did on the survey is, I don't really like it if I'm honest, but they sent out a different price point to different people, ranging between $10 and $40. This is kind of typical for Blizzard paid services, overpriced and automated. And for once, unlike other services like server transfers, I don't see the point of adding some kind of restrictive pricing to this, other than how much money can we get out of people. And this opportunity will only be available for you to make once as well, right? Because if you choose to carry on with that character as your main, you kind of have to pay whatever price they put it as if you want to also copy that character. So this feels like a real fear of missing out, taking advantage of people type thing. I thought the price would be somewhere between $10 to $15 or so, which already seems steep for something automated, but I don't think that's overly unreasonable. At the end of the day, I think there's a reason behind the pricing, which is to try and get an idea of how many people are heavily invested in the Classic era servers so they can figure out what kind of resources they'll need, how many servers will need to be merged, how many players do we expect, that kind of thing. Because if it was free, pretty much everyone will copy a character, why wouldn't you? And then you'd have no idea how many people are actually going to log in until you're a few months down the line. Check your email and vote accordingly, knowing that it could be as low as $10. For me, I'll probably end up copying a character for posterity more than anything else, just in case there's anything interesting happening on the Classic era servers which I'd like to cover or just have a look at myself, really. So that's a brief news roundup so far. Obviously, there's lots of other things that are going on at the moment with the beta, which is progressing pretty fast. We have had the level cap raised up to 68, and I believe they sent out another wave the other day as well. You may have also noticed I've done the occasional stream on YouTube as well. I'll try and figure out some kind of schedule. I'll tweet out or something when I intend to go live. That's about it though. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.